Hello, EWA Universe. I am Brian, aka Pylon, which means you are listening to the EWA Podcast, episode number 36. We have a very special guest for you today. His name is Corey. You know him as our current national champion, Adam Page, and AJ Styles. So we're going to talk to him about his slew of characters he's played over the years. We're going to touch on a little bit of a serious note about some things that Corey's had to go through in his life. And then we're also going to talk about a little bit of Muay Thai here at the end. You're going to have some fun. You're going to hear my dog barking in the background. You're also going to hear that my microphone is a little bit better than last week, so we're making progress on this thing. And as always, at the end of the podcast here, our resident stat man, John, is going to give us a little history lesson. So you guys sit back and enjoy the show. Corey. You will know him better as our current national champion, Adam Page, and also as AJ Styles. Corey, how are you doing today?
Oh, not doing too bad. How are you?
Doing very well, thank you. So, something I always like to kick the podcast off with is, how did you get involved with the EWA?
Well, I got involved in the EWA pretty much the same. Like, if you listen to Kyle or K2's interview, it's almost word for word the exact same. I found TNA through Chris Monte's Ring of Honor, which I found I found EWA through Chris Monte's ROH through the official TNA eFed, which is just a ball of fun.
Right. Yeah, that was pretty interesting. The fact that they actually had that going there. So you ended up joining EWA.
I was part of the I don't want to call it an invasion because I don't think we did an invasion storyline. I just remember there was a draft. Gotcha. Where Sergeant Slaughter and I can't remember the authority figure at the time did sort of a, you're either on Wednesday Night Warzone or Sunday Night Slam.
Oh, okay. So this was several years ago then when all this happened.
Yeah, 2007, I think.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I was looking at your current user profile that said you joined up in 2013, and I didn't think that was correct.
Oh, yeah. No, I've been around for far, far too long.
Right. So then was that TNA Fed? Was that your first experience with e-fedding?
Oh, yeah. The official TNA e-fed was my first. That was actually how my introduction to the internet wrestling community and everything was the TNA forum.
Oh, nice.
So when I was on there, and then they were like, "Oh, we're gonna do an e-fed," so I was like, "What the hell is an e-fed?" And it worked out really well for me because my big thing about it is I'm kind of a control freak, and I never really enjoyed how a lot of characters are treated on television, and it gives you an opportunity to play around.
Yeah, my thoughts exactly on the whole e-fed thing. I think a lot of people that are frustrated with the TV products will enjoy doing this. It seems like actually something I've noticed, most of the people involved in the EWA don't watch wrestling on a regular basis, which I kind of find funny.
Oh, that's really weird. Yeah.
But yeah, so early in your eFed experience, like I think K2 was saying last week, you were involved in a lot of tag teams with him.
Yeah, K2 and I, we worked together an awful lot, mainly because he was always kind of the front man to our group. He was way more social. Like, I'm not a terribly social person on the forum, as you could probably gather just because I don't really post a lot. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he always kind of, pretty much whenever we were going to be joining a Fed, it was because he was like, "Hey, we should check this place out, it has potential." And I'd be like, "All right, here we go." So yeah, that's pretty much it. I always played usually the second man to his lead character. I was the Eddie Kingston to his Homicide in Ring of Honor, and a little bit in EWA, and Claudio Castagnoli to his Chris Hero. So yeah.
Yeah, so it sounds like you've been involved. You've used a lot of characters that aren't really mainstream. I mean, I know some of those guys are main characters in the WWE now, but you like picking up those lesser known wrestlers to play with.
Oh yeah, that was kind of like, I guess, our calling card. Is I always enjoyed playing indie guys mainly because they were just they just felt like they were more fun. They were less inhibitions. Plus, at the time, wrestling in the WWE the talent was just kind of abysmal in my opinion. And this is not to make fun of these or anyone's favorite characters, but like Chris Masters, Rene Dupree, Sylvain Grenier. Just to name just a few of those guys, it was kind of just like that odd mid-2000s era where WWE television just wasn't that great.
Right. Yeah, I definitely think that was a big problem going on back then. But as steering the conversation back here toward e-fetting, I did want to get into your time as Dean Ambrose. And for those the newer people here that aren't really familiar, you played Dean Ambrose back in 2014, and you had a pretty good run with him. You were champion for, let's see, on the forums here, it looks like you were champion for 83 days.
Mm-hmm.
And you had mentioned previously that you played Ambrose channeling sort of a dark time in your life. You could talk about that a little bit, where you drew the inspiration from on that character?
Well, yeah, I mean, what really drew me to Dean Ambrose at the time, Dean was sort of just a guy. It was one of the guys in the Shield, and like they didn't really have established characters so much as just guys in the Shield. But I was really familiar with him when he was on the independent circuit and in Dragon Gate USA when he was Jon Moxley, and Jon Moxley is very similar to the current Dean Ambrose product, but not as like kind of kid friendly.
Right.
But what drew me to playing that character, and what I drew a lot of, the promo stuff by, was it had established in his indie promos that he was kind of this homeless kid with a kind of fucked up background. And when I was between the ages of 13 and 18, I lived with a drug addict and just sort of in a very abusive situation, very physically abusive, mentally abusive, emotionally abusive, and I was very familiar with a lot of those kind of, just kind of miserable feelings, but it's a miserable you grew to accept. Like, this is just your day-to-day life now. So I ended up getting tested for like PTSD, and because I suffered through some major depression throughout most of my 20s now.
Wow.
And pretty much what had happened is I was sort of you have your fight or flight section when you're confronted with something. You either fight against it or you run away. Mm-hmm. But I was living with this person, so I couldn't fight him and I couldn't leave because I was like 16 years old and that's where I just lived. So I was just stuck with this adrenaline in my brain, and it had nowhere to go. So like it affects the way you think about things. So yeah, that's kind of where I came up, where I took a lot of just from that character, because at the time I was just really depressed and really like frustrated because there were all of these feelings that I had from that period of time that I was not processing properly. Like, so I wasn't acknowledging things, but because I'm not acknowledging them, they're finding other outlets to come out. And so I was, miserable. I was working this job that just abused me, but I felt like I deserved the abuse, so I stayed there for it. And it just put me through the ringer. So, I played Ambrose. Ambrose was just miserable and like just a bastard and did like horrific things and felt nothing the whole time doing it. So, that's pretty much where I did it. And I'm not at that place anymore. I've gone through some extensive therapy last year or so. I've been, found a lot of different outlets for, things I've been doing, a lot of creative outlets. So I don't necessarily think I could go back to being that version of Dean Ambrose if I tried.
Wow, man, that's pretty intense. But I can definitely understand the character a lot better now, because I know I got to work with you a little bit. We were on the same Super Brawl team in 2013.
Oh, I felt like we should have won that year too.
Yeah, oh no, definitely. But yeah, I remember seeing your stuff with Dean Ambrose and just thinking, good Lord, where does he get this stuff from? Because, I mean, I've said it before, those characters that are really out there like that, it's just such a stretch for me to see, think about how I would play the character. But, I mean, hearing where you come from and where you channeled that from, that's really intense. Definitely makes me understand that character a lot more. But so let's see here. Your title reign with Dean Ambrose, you were the last reigning Grand Slam champion.
Oh, I didn't know I had that notoriety.
Yeah.
I had really just, it was that, I feel really like bad and awkward about it, because pretty much what happened is, I was working a different job that was also abusing me in a way, but like it was also eating up way more of my time. So I was getting to this sort of time crunch area, and then my computer at the time I lost my hard drive, just was out, and I had to wait like 2 weeks to get it, and it came out right around the time of that event where I was scheduled to defend the title, and I let Newt know, and Newt was just kind of like, all right, cool, we'll come up with something else, and then like I found out I got like stripped, the title got stripped from me, and then they had like, it was DDP versus Harry Smith, and then DDP won.
Yeah.
So I was like, at that point, I was just like, oh, okay, well, easy out. So like, I was like really starting to kind of feel that kind of, I guess, stereotypical burnout that like every EWA world champion goes through.
Right.
And it's just like, all right, cool, here's my out. So that's when I disappeared as Dean Ambrose.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, you got that distinction now because of the title after DDP won it was renamed the World Heavyweight Championship. So you got that distinction as the last Grand Slam champion.
I do know that I also was the longest reigning television champion in EWA history as well. So I have 2 now. Yes.
So who was that with?
Alex Shelley, who was my go-to character for a very long time.
Oh, nice. I love Alex Shelley.
Oh yeah, big fan. Glad to see he's back in Ring of Honor, but we'll go back to e-fetting stuff.
Right. So coming back to kind of the current situation here, you came in a couple months ago with Adam Page.
Mm-hmm.
Big fan of his on the Ring of Honor scene, or you just like the character, or what made you decide to pick him up?
Well, pretty much what happened was I was getting into that kind of jonesing for something. And I'm a big part of the TNA Fed that Steve runs. So like I was kind of like wanting to get back in EWA, and I was thinking like, what could I do? And I know there's really no faces in EWA for the most part. Not a lot of people like to play the good guy.
Right.
And honest to God, I was thinking of playing Heath Slater.
Oh yeah.
Because I wanted to do something kind of tied to my roots. I live in Columbus, Ohio, but I am a born and raised native of West Virginia.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if you've heard Brady speak, but Brady's also from West Virginia, and I don't have the same accent that he does, oddly enough.
Yeah.
But I was looking like I was thinking, oh, well, I should do Heath Slater because he's also from West Virginia, but I remember Jazz played him, and Jazz played him for a long time, and I was like, I don't really want to, I don't want to do that in case Jazz comes back and wants to pick him up, so I'll find someone else. And I always really liked Adam Page. I knew he was from Virginia, and then I found out that he like occasionally wrestles in like an indie fed in the town next to the one I grew up in. So I was like, all right, well, there we go, good enough.
Nice.
So yeah, I liked Adam. I like Adam Page in Ring of Honor. Big fan of his, especially now he's gone face. Good stuff.
That's pretty cool. So, like you said with Dean Ambrose, you kind of channeled that from a previous time in your life there. Is this Adam Page? Is that more like who you are now? You play him as, or?
It's a sort of a combination of things with that. I draw a lot of like when you're from a really small part of like the world that's kind of considered really rednecky and white trash, because there's a lot of really negative stereotypes about where I'm from. You get like kind of a chip on your shoulder about it, like especially when you're kind of in the neighboring state of Ohio, and people crack jokes about West Virginia and our pill popping problems and our the jokes about incest and bestiality. I wanted to sort of like take this sort of background where I like where I'm from. I'm glad to be moving forward, and I want to try to carry a little bit of that with me as I get older and accomplish more.
Right.
So I wanted something to sort of encapsulate that, and I just liked this idea of this kid that's in about over his head. because EWA is, the biggest promotion in our world. In this, this kid went from wrestling in small gymnasiums and now he's the national champion, and kid just trying to keeps trying to tread water and keep his head above the water.
Nice. So not to get off subject here, but growing up on the West Coast over here, I don't really know too much about East Coast things, but West Virginia, that's kind of considered like a backwoods type area.
Oh yeah, I mean we're considered really backwoods, like really. In West Virginia, obesity is a big problem. Smoking is a big problem, like lung cancer, tobacco, related cancers. That's a huge issue. Poverty is unreal, especially now because the coal industry is drying up. So, a lot of people are losing their jobs and are on, welfare and government assistance. It's kind of racist there. It's incredibly homophobic there. It's a rough part of the world, but like it's also kind of got that Southern hospitality, Southern charm thing where it's real rough there, but I know a lot of really nice people and a lot of people who are, just doing their thing, working hard and getting paid.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I've been living in Oregon my entire life, so I know nothing about anything that happens on the East Coast. So, I just think that's
here's a quick snippet of news. In West Virginia, they just very recently, if I'm not mistaken, legalized drinking raw milk that's not been pasteurized, that's not been treated. So to celebrate it, the Republican lawmakers allegedly, now I'm not sure the validity, I've not checked it through, but I saw it and I was like, I could see that happening where I'm from. They apparently celebrated by drinking raw milk and then got incredibly ill from it. That's kind of where I'm from, if that's any indication.
That's a fantastic story. But I was just going to say, I think it's super cool being a part of the EWA here, getting to meet people from, we literally have members from all corners of the earth. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I'm enjoying here now doing the podcast, is getting to talk to you guys, get a completely different perspective, someone that grew up in West Virginia, somewhere that, that states never crossed my mind aside from learning what the 50 states were back in 5th grade. But, no, that's pretty cool. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, no problem, man.
Yeah, going back to your current characters here, you started off with Adam Page, and then not too long after that, you pop in here with AJ Styles. What was your mindset behind bringing on another, what looks like another big player in the EWA here?
What happened with that, it was at the time, I was really, when I was first signing up with Adam Page, I was considering AJ, but I think someone beat me to it. Mm-hmm. And then that person kind of flamed out, and I was like, well, AJ just debuted for at the Royal Rumble. If I'm ever going to play him, I need to strike while the iron is hot. So I put in, I got permission from Newt to pick him up, and immediately the thought came like, all right, I don't want to drop one Adam because I just was getting him established, and he just won that tournament for that Brad Maddox held. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, like I don't want to run them separately. So I'm doing my best to try to put them as kind of a unit, not necessarily a tag team, but just characters that can interact with one another in a kind of organic sense.
Yeah, that's pretty cool the way that it's played out, because I saw you join up as AJ Styles, and I'm trying to get my timeline right here, but I think that was right after Adam Page, quote unquote, lost the match against Brad Maddox because for whatever reason he couldn't show up for the match. And so, mm-hmm. I think a lot of people were just assuming that you were going to go full-time with AJ and drop Adam Page, but it's pretty cool the way that you've intertwined the two characters to work with each other.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, all of us are guilty of really bad e-fetting habits. Mm-hmm. In particular, I'm guilty of quite a few of them. But I didn't want to repeat a pattern of pick up a character, drop a character. So I was like, I'm going to try to make this work. I don't want to throw in the towel just because I got the opportunity to play AJ Styles. Yeah,
and to your credit, you've done a great job of getting both those characters in the limelight and making them both relevant to what's going on right now.
Oh, thank you.
So speaking of what was going on with Brad Maddox, not too sure if the guy's still hanging around or if he's just taking some time off, but when you actually won the national title, was that something that was planned on your end, or did Newt just write that in?
I didn't really know too much about it. I did get a PM from Newt, and he was just like, "Hey, can you put up a character development, something or other?" I just, well, sure. And I didn't necessarily. I had a feeling something might come up, but I didn't necessarily think I was going to win the title that way.
Let's see here. It looks like Adam Page. Let's see here. On Slam, was he confronted by Mike Bennett? Is that what happened?
Yes, that is what happened. Okay. Adam Page is looking for challengers to the national title. He wants to defend it, be a good champion. He doesn't want to rest on his laurels like Brad Maddox did. And so he's been throwing out open challenges, and the Miracle debuted on Slam to confront him.
Yeah, I was pretty interested to see that. I mean, we're getting more Ring of Honor wrestlers in the EWA, and I think that's pretty cool because, for people that don't watch Ring of Honor, they got so much talent. I think it's cool to have that exposure.
Oh yeah. Here, but, well, what's interesting and what's kind of funny about it is I'm not sure if you watch TNA. God bless your heart if you do, because it's hard to get through some days. Michael Bennett is actually in TNA as the Miracle.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, he pretty much has been doing that kind of thing, showing up, running his mouth off, and then backing off from a fight before it can start.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that was something that I kind of was working with Steve on, because Steve has been meaning to get back into role playing regularly,
mm-hmm.
And I can't stand Michael Bennett. I don't get his appeal. Not a fan of him. So of course. Steve went that way because he likes to do things like that to me when we work together.
Nice. So is this national championship match booked, or is this something that's up in the air at the moment?
It's not booked. Okay. Michael Bennett is focusing on Civil War. He's he in his words, he has bigger fish to fry, and winning the heavyweight title is more important to him than winning the national. Gotcha. So he basically just used the open challenge as an opportunity to get his name out there. As of right now, I don't believe I have a title, a challenger stepping up. So I know Newt said he was looking into some folks, so I just kind of waiting to hear back.
Okay, interesting. So I guess we'll find out on Slam.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I always enjoy just random title matches. They're always fun for anxiety's sake, but it's always a good time.
Right. So I can assume that Adam Page is not going to be in Civil War. Is AJ going to be involved in that?
I'm still debating on that. I do want to try to double book myself there, but I mean that's 6 role plays in a week. If I don't focus on any other writing, I might be able to pull it off.
Yeah, that'd definitely be tough to do. I know last year I managed to do Anderson and Cesaro both in the Civil War match, but I had done one character's RPs the week before, and then the week of Civil War I did the other character's RPs. So,
that's actually a good idea. I had not considered that.
Yeah. But, yeah, that's always a tough thing to do because there's no guarantee that you're actually going to be able to put 100% effort into both characters. You might just be getting a half effort from both guys, and you don't want to have to do that. But what is your favorite failed storyline? Something you started.
Oh, see, now like Kyle, I have so many to choose from. Steve will also vouch for this if you ever get Steve on there. I am someone who I have really high concept ideas that I want to follow through and do something really bizarre and still really strange. But I find it's the characters that are more natural that I have the most success with. Mm-hmm. The one that stands out in my mind right now is I have an unashamed love of Eric Young from TNA.
Oh, yeah.
I played Eric Young. He was one of the very first characters I ever played in e-fetting. And back when he was before he grew out his beard and was really crazy, he was kind of doing this, dropped on the head kind of stupid character.
Like back with Team Canada or before that even?
It was after that, actually.
Okay.
This is very recent that he was doing this sort of character. I did enjoy the paranoid character an awful lot. But no, my Eric Young storyline was he was going to be a totally self-aware e-fed character. And I laughed really hard because Dylan, Al Snow, sort of did a little bit of that in his Slam segment where he became very self-aware. But that was the idea. And I did a couple of promos with him in the EWA of just this Eric Young who becomes aware of his existence in sort of a black abyss. And then he's in a setting somewhere. and his relationships with people, like he knows, like, oh, that person's my friend, but he's like, I don't think I really know them, kind of that kind of thing. Just it got really big and unwieldy, so it fell apart.
You kind of drawn inspiration from Deadpool on that?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. If I'm not mistaken, I think it was at the time that Brian Posehn and Jerry Duggan were doing his arc, and I think that John might be the only person who can vouch for that, because I'm not sure if any other comic book fans from the EWA.
Yeah, no, I'm a pretty big comic book fan myself, but I can't say cool. I've read a lot of Deadpool stuff, unfortunately. I do enjoy reading it, but there's just so much out there, it's hard to...
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The market's saturated.
Yeah, definitely is. So it sounds like you've played a really big roster of wrestlers over the years. Is there one wrestler that you haven't played that you want to?
There's one character that I've played once, but I would love to play again just to get him right. I have a big fascination with the vaudevillains.
Oh, yeah.
I love Aiden English and Simon Gotch. Every time I've gone to see NXT live a couple of times, and they are absolute highlight for me every time. But I played Aiden English just a little bit this past year. I kind of a failed storyline with Christian. I kind of flamed out on it, and don't blame anyone but myself on it. It was one of those I thought too much about it, and it kind of threw me off. But no, I would love to do the vaudevillains proper.
Now, Aiden English, and looking at your profile picture here, you got the mustache going. Is that the Aiden English? Is that inspired by that?
No, actually, oddly enough, it is inspired by Bobby Fish. I'm a huge Bobby Fish fan from Ring of Honor, and I've played. That's actually my character in the TNA Fed. I've played him there for going on 2 or 3 years, I think.
Is Bobby Fish part of Red Dragon?
Yes.
Okay. I know it's trying to stay away from real wrestling here, but I watched a tag match sometime last year. Red Dragon, Time Splitters, and there was another team involved. I can't remember.
Was it Roppongi Vice?
No, it wasn't Roppongi Vice.
Or the Young Bucks?
I was pretty sure the Young Bucks, but yeah, it was a three-way tag match with those guys. Good Lord, that was one of the most exciting matches I think I've ever seen in my life. Oh yeah,
they're those three particular teams. They know each other very well at this point. And just to kind of make one more note on just real wrestling kind of stuff, Ring of Honor probably has the best tag team division in wrestling at the moment, especially now that the Motor City Machine Guns have reunited there.
Oh no way! I didn't realize that.
Oh yeah, Chris Sabin had been acting as sort of like a manager for Frankie Kazarian and Christopher Daniels, and Alex Shelley, came back and they reunited very recently.
That's really cool. I'm gonna have to check out some Ring of Honor. I haven't watched recently, but Motor City Machine Guns, I gotta say, are my all-time favorite tag team.
Oh yeah, same here. I was a huge fan of them back in 2007, 8 years of TNA when it was still really good.
Okay, so one more thing that I wanted to touch on here. Talked briefly about this in the past. You had started taking up Muay Thai.
Yes.
What made you decide to get into martial arts?
Mainly it was, like I said, it was when I was dealing with my depression, pretty much like I felt like I'd wasted a good chunk of my 20s. I'm 29 years old, and I've just now started like coming out of it, like since about November. So, I was kind of stuck in this rut of wake up, go to work, come home, zone out for 4 or 5 hours, go to sleep, and just repeat it over and over again. And I was just miserable. And before I even moved to Columbus, I did research Muay Thai because, like I said, I was a really big Bobby Fish fan, and that was sort of one of his fighting style, essentially, is he has a modified mixed martial arts wrestling style, but a lot of his strikes are Muay Thai based. So I was, found a gym here in Columbus and joined up in the summer, did their beginners classes, and stayed on a little bit, and then got into a real bad headspace for a couple more months. Got out of that, came back in January, got hurt. so right now I've to get myself in better conditioning, I've switched my diet to a very strict diet since about January. I'm doing a body weight routine, so I'm doing just a lot of just resistance training and getting a lot of the excess pounds off. And as soon as I get to a place where I feel comfortable with that, I'm going to get back into cardio. And my projected date is I'd like to get back at the gym in either the middle of April or May.
Nice. Yeah, that's really cool that you can get involved with that. I mean, the vast majority of wrestling fans, it's a big stereotype, but most of us are super out of shape, so, I mean, I know a lot of us grow up fantasizing martial arts, whether it's watching Jackie Chan or, all of us have that spot in our hearts where we want to go do some sort of martial arts. And, I've been doing martial arts for the better part of 10 years now. And I got to say, it's one of those things that if you can get involved with it, it can just take over your life in a good way. And it really gives you something to take your mind off of whatever problems you're having.
Oh yeah, I mean, like, and the thing with the gym that I go to, it's incredibly just intense, and you get beat up, but you walk away from it and you just feel amazing afterwards.
Oh, yeah.
And there was such a real sense of community there. Everybody knows each other, incredibly friendly. There's no judgments, no matter what sort of status you are, going in there, what kind of condition you're in. And what I found out is these big, bad, Muay Thai dudes who've been doing it for 10 years, all covered in tattoos, just monsters. I had a very lovely conversation with them over the summer about when John Cena was going to lose the United States title. so they're fans too.
That was awesome. All right, well, I think that's about all the questions I have here. So before we sign off, Corey, do you have any last thoughts you'd like to send off to the EWA audience?
If I had to have any sort of thoughts I'd like to put out there, and just sort of a word for advice, I suppose, is in your last episode with K2, he said something that made me laugh really hard because it's incredibly true, and it's just that every character sounds like we have these master's degrees in English. Everybody's like long dialogue, stuff like that, and my advice to everybody is, and it's something that really helped out with my writing, is see if you can read more. Like, not just like role plays, but like read books, like read comics, read anything that will kind of motivate you and force you to look at what you're doing and seeing how you can change it for the better. Because that was one of the things that really got me with my style, was I found myself just talking too much. And you can do a lot of talking, but if you can say and sort of try to use emotion instead, it's always more effective. And I'll throw in another bit of advice, and it's something that's always helped me. I really don't like tit-for-tat role-playing, where you read what someone wrote about you, and then you reply, and then they read your reply and reply. Mm-hmm. I never read my opponent's role-plays until I'm done. It works for me for the most part. It does. There are times though when you're kind of like just stuck trying to like, what am I going to say here? What am I going to do here? And it kind of forces you to rely on yourself and not have to rely on someone. And in my opinion, it also helps with sandbagging.
Yeah, no, that's a great point that you've made there. I think that if you rely too much on what your opponent is saying in their role plays, it kind of takes away from your ability to tell a story with what's going on with your character.
Exactly. It lets them set the pace too, and it kind of puts you in the disadvantage.
Right. Well, Corey, fantastic words there. You guys can take one thing away from this podcast. That last 2 minutes there, I think, is a great thing to walk away with. But Corey, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Oh, no problem, man. Thanks. I'm happy to do it again sometime if you'd like.
Excellent. As if you hadn't learned enough already, John is going to make you learn one more thing. Take it away, John.
This week in EWA history. After being sent to Mexico on a month-long tour to promote the company, Kurt Angle had been dishing out open challenges with the caveat that if anyone could beat him, they'd get a Grand Slam title match at Civil War. On his last appearance, he was surprised by a masked luchador by the name of El Puncario, who inevitably turned out to be Kurt's sworn enemy and the person Angle had been trying to avoid CM Punk.
John, thanks again for that history lesson. And one more big shout out going to Corey. Thanks again for coming on the podcast. It was a lot of fun to talk to you. And for anybody else that's interested on being on a future edition of the EWA Podcast, go ahead and shoot me a PM and we'll work something out. Until then, you guys have a good one.